Hey, brothers, and to the real sisters, right? I want y'all to understand this. Rosewood, what happened in Rosewood, Florida, and the modern ABW are like in many ways, right? And because of who the modern, let's just be honest, this has been going on since before slavery, during slavery, and after slavery, right? That the biggest risk to Afro men trying to accomplish something, trying to be free, has for a while have been the ABW. But there are a lot of parallels to Rosewood. With the exception of one, there are a lot of parallels to Rosewood that one need to recognize. And the only escape for the Afro man right now is to totally, assuredly leave the ABW alone. They're not worthy of our protection, relationship with us until the laws in the United States change. We are at the most risk when dealing with them, basically because they know us, because they raised us. So they know us. They know how to get at us. They know how to persecute. They know how to cover things up. They've been in the media trashing Afro men for the past 50, 60 years. And now that we have social media, we can now wake up to what's really been going on. All right. And so the Rosewood and the modern ABW, they're alike in many ways. And the Afro men, B men, black men are at risk for their lives and freedom simply by dating them or trying to marry them. And by freedom in marriage, mean that if you don't do what they want because you're their slave, they will run you through the coals in the courts. So let's take a look at Rosewood, and then let's take a look at the modern behaviors of the ABW. And some of these clips you've seen before, but I want you to let it sink in, and then I want you to understand something else that I've noticed when dealing with this. Okay, so everybody, let's take a deeper look at Rosewood and what it really was. But first, I want y'all to take a look at this and remember this.
404-416-1389. Brianna Hampton.
She just pepper sprayed me. She just pepper sprayed me for no reason in my house.
I can't keep following me.
No, I ain't following you nowhere. No, I don't have a gun. You really doing this lying stuff again?
A gun.
I'm recording everything.
Please hurry.
Yeah, please hurry, because she's crazy. Please hurry, she's crazy.
Thank you.
Please hurry up, she's crazy. No, I'm not. I'm upstairs. You downstairs. Do what you do. No, I'm not. Do what you do. I'm way up here. Do what you do.
Now, for a moment, imagine if this dude didn't have a camera videotaping everything. All right. Also notice that this is a so-called black woman who they swear they need protection, right? But the real question is, who's going to protect that man against her? Who's going to protect that man from her? Who's going to protect us Afro men from them? Think about this. All right. So now let's look at this Rosewood, Florida thing. All right. Take a real good look on it. Look at it and see the similarities. There's going to be a stark difference, and it's going to be another case I'm going to bring up later in this video. All right. Of what happens. Well, you'll see what I mean. But let's take a look at Rosewood and take a look at the reasonings behind it and take a look at some other data as well. Alright, so now let's take a real good look at what happened in Rosewood. Alright, January 1st, 1923, Summit, Florida. A young married white woman named Fannie Taylor claimed that she was assaulted by Jesse Hunter, a made-up name, a black man who had escaped a prison chain gang. also a made-up story. Although there was no evidence against Mr. Hunter, local white men launched a manhunt in Rosewood, a nearby town about 200 black people. On January 2nd, a mob of white men kidnapped, tortured, and lynched Sam Carter, a black craftsman from Rosewood, on suspicion that he had helped Jesse Hunter escape. So a made-up name, all of this. White woman accused black man. Black men start losing their lives, start losing their freedom, have to live in fear. All right? And to this day, if you are a wise man, you will understand that you should fear the mouth of any woman, but especially the ABW in the U.S. All right? Now, I want you to take a look at these, this State Crime Record Bureau data. All right, declared false convictions. All right, understand that 40.3%. All right, in 2020 alone, it was 42.7%. It's probably way up now. Well, you know it's way up now, given the recent court cases. Above around 50%. But do you know what the media do? Do you know what the state do? They protect the lives of the women who are lying against the men, because there is no such thing as justice in the United States. We're talking about the judicial system. We're talking about the women who mainly vote Democrat and on the left. Understand this. And you got the utter destruction of society at the mouths of these women, by the hand of these women, who more times than not, according to a Harvard study, commit assault on men first. Okay, to the point of 70%, according to the Harvard study. But it's hidden in the media. The media hide all these things. I want you, now, let's look deeper into this. All right? One of the things that bullies do, they get, in this current society, is they get outraged when men fight back. So Afro men started to fight back by getting passports. Right? We decided to get passports and leave the BW alone in the United States. Leave women, period, alone in the United States. Because if you're wise, you understand that this is too much of a risk, and it's not worth it. To mess with them in a relationship or a marriage is not worth it. It's not the destruction of your peace, your happiness, or all the things that you've worked for. All right? Outrage. The bottom paragraph, outraged that black residents fought back the men. The posse left the scene to regroup and return with more men. On January 5th, a mob between 200 and 300 white men attacked Rosewood. And this is a low estimate, but that's not how many people were really deleted from the earth. It was, if you ask the Afro people whose town it was, see, Caucasians will lie and try to lessen the severity of something, but the Afro people said it was closer to 200 people were unalived, were deleted by this mob, right? All right, black men, women, and children on site, and burned the town to the ground. This was a prosperous town. So for the white people that says, why don't you build? For the black women though, understand who's saying that black men never did anything, never built anything. We built all these towns that were burned down. And we're talking recently, we're talking all the way up to the 50s and 60s. The towns were destroyed by the betrayal of these ABW, who took on the leftist ideology that they don't need no man, and then went and took the magazine ideology to blame and accuse and lie, outright lie on Afro men, the same way this Caucasian woman did in Rosewood. And the same way she got a town destroyed is the same way that these ABWs destroyed families and the entire Afro community. into what it is now. And they're still lying. All right? All right, so the black residents hid in the woods, fled by train to Gainesville, Florida, never to return. Survivors later recounted that Fannie Taylor made false accusations against Jesse Hunter to conceal her extramarital affair with a Caucasian man. I want you to understand this. When we look at this woman lied on the Duke lacrosse team. All right. When we look at false allegations, all right, I want you to look at this 41% and understand this research was done by Dr. Eugene J. Kagan with the police department assistants. All right. This is false R allegations. All right. Now, what they found out is the percentage of verified false R-word allegations reported over a 9-year period, 41%. All right, now why do I have this up? This is to show what's been going on. If you look at all these charts, it's gotten worse in 2020. It's probably worse now. But this has been going on. This study was started in 76. All right, so if you read those studies and you look at the chart that was on the other side, just pause and look at that stuff. All right, you will find another thing that's curious. All right, so this B-Dub lied on a Duke lacrosse team. All right. And then look at Newsweek. Look at the New York Post. Tell me the difference that you notice between what happens to when a B-Dub lies on a Caucasian man and what happens when anyone lies on an Afro man. Right? Now, here's the other thing. All right. Here's the other thing when you look at this. You look at all these bombshells and stuff like that, and then you understand that the most unprotected person in the United States is not black women. Oh no, not by a long shot. It's Afro men. And we got to protect ourselves by thinking outside the box. Remember Juanetta Gibson. All right, and Brian Banks. Look it up. I did a lot of videos on this. All right, and her mom was behind everything. Remember, she was 15, he was 16 when all this stuff happened. All right, when the state paid that money to her, they didn't give it to her particularly because she was a minor. Her aunts and moms spent all that money up, giving some of it to her. Right? Now, understand this. Pay attention to this.
I was dating a young lady who put her hands on me, right? And kept hitting me. And I was like, wow. Obviously, I'm a man. I'm a football player. Big old black dude from Compton. I cannot do anything but just sit there and take these shots. But then I got smart. I said, it's not just these shots that she's shooting at me. It's the fact that she could say anything happened in this moment. And I left my own house, my own bedroom. Left. Now, she didn't know I left because she ran into the bathroom, and while she's in the bathroom, I run outside. Walking outside, once I get there, see my neighbors, they all looking at the commotion. And they all just shaking their head looking like, you know what they thinking, because I'm thinking that's why I'm out here now, because I know y'all thinking that. And literally what saved me was her screaming out the window in that moment, help, somebody help, please, he's upstairs hitting me, Marcellus, somebody help, please. And literally, I was outside with my neighbors. And all of them looked at her, looked at me, and said, wow, as the police were pulling up in that moment.
As the police were pulling up in that moment. I want y'all to understand this. As the police were pulling up in that moment. In other words, the most lied on man gets lied on because everybody make us guilty, even though we're the best fathers according to studies, even though we're the least violent in relationship according to study, even though the women are the most violent in relationships, and even though it has been shown that the majority of cases that this has happened, especially in the Me Too era, the women have been lying. But you know what? Again, I will say it again. When it comes to Afro men, there is no justice. And understand how upset they're getting because we've decided to get passports and leave them alone. But dude, that's your safety valve. The passports, leave them alone. Don't mess with them. All right. Get your cash together and go to another country, even if it is just to find a relationship. And if you find one, make sure they have nothing to do with the BAWs or the so-called toxic community that they've developed to be hostile against good Afro men. Don't do it, bros. All right, so allow me to bring something else up. And this is probably the most important thing I'm going to say. This legislation, right? The story happened that long ago, but the story only came to light again in 1982 after a reporter at then St. Petersburg Times exposed the forgotten riot. In other words, if it happens to Afro men and his families, it gets swept under the rug. The reporter, Gary Moore, had traveled to Cedar Cay, 10 miles southwest of Rosewood on the coast, to explore a Sunday feature on the rural Gulf town. Understand his quote. Like the public at large, I personally have never heard of Rosewood. Understand this. When it comes to stuff that primarily affects the Afro man and his families, all right, black women, everybody's covering everything black women do. They're putting her in music, movies, and everything absent the Afro men because she is ingrained in the part of the oppressive society in which we live. She has turned on the community and the Afro men because she was always in it for herself if you look at these things. Okay? And the community and the children that are left to her suffer as a result of it. But then the powers that be knew that this was going to be the case. All right? So I want you to let that sink in. Now, pay attention to how they look outside of the U.S. The inch mobs are now the courts that the ABW used to help to persecute the Afro men. And other men have taken notice. And this is why they are not desired anywhere else in the world outside of us.
Why I prefer not to get married to an American woman is because most American women are wired for divorce. Many of them come into your life just to divorce you. They are okay with going through a divorce. They are not willing to take any hit. Any little thing. I'm about to go to the car. I'm about to go to court and get a divorce with you right now. I ain't playing with you, boy. I don't want you no more. I'm gonna check out this relationship. I do not want to go through that. Most American women live on fast food. Checkers, KFC, Popeye chicken, and McDonald's. I do not want to go through having to buy food every day outside. This is one of the reasons why I would prefer to get married to an African woman, because African women, they have been trained to make food in the house. They have been trained to stay in relationships no matter what happens. It's very difficult for an African woman to get a divorce.
And there you have it. And this is the sentiment around the world when it comes to American women, especially the so-called black women. I leave y'all with that. With that said, I'm out.